Scrapyard Diecast Racing.
It's the Then versus Now Challenge! 3!
As always, I'm your host, Barnabas Tone.
And this is me, your co-host, Frederick Allen Seto. As you can tell by that title card, we are back for the biggest event here at Scrapyard Diecast Racing. It's the Then vs. Now Challenge 3!
And this year it's our biggest tournament yet, Al.
Oh, that's right, Barry. We have representation from 15 different marks. Is that how you say that word? Mark? Is it Marquis? Marquet? Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch?
While he figures that out, fans, let's go over the list. This year we'll see cars from BMW, Chevrolet, Holden, Honda, Jeep, Lamborghini, Land Rover, Mercedes, Nissan, Opel, Pontiac, Renault, Subaru, Toyota, and Volkswagen.
And that's not even the best part, fans. After last year's event, we were flooded with applications to enter this year's tournament. And we've ended up with 48 racers.
But here's the kicker, folks. We only have 32 open spots for this tournament.
That's right. So that means we have to have 8 elimination races before we can even get to the main event. But that is still a long ways away. Today's focus is all on the Nissans. More specifically, a pack of GTRs from across that car's iconic history.
Up first for Team Then, we have this beautiful 1982 Turbo R30, driven by Mr. Roberto Paul from San Bernardino, California.
Then, also from Team Then, we have this gorgeous yellow hatchback, the 1973 HT 2000 GTR, driven by Miss Sherry Ibarra from Salamanca, Spain.
Next is our only entry representing Team Now. We have this beautiful 2020 LBWK 35 GTRR version 2, and it's driven by Tanner Zhang from Dazhou, China.
And last but not least, for Team Then, it's this pristine classic, the 1971-2000 GTX, driven by Mr. Gerard Avery from Darlington, UK. And one last quick thing. Here are the rules for the elimination races. Elimination races consist of 5 mandatory heats. First place is 5 points, second place is 3 points, third place is 2 points, fourth place is 1 point, and a DNF will get you a big fat goose egg of 0. And you can make it across the line any way possible. On your wheels is preferable, but you can make it on your hood, backwards, upside down, being pushed, on somebody else's roof. It doesn't matter, just as long as you get across the line. And this is not a timed event. We're a junkyard. We're lucky we have a working coffee machine. No way we can afford a timer. And only the top 2 point scorers will advance to the actual tournament for a chance to represent their car brand and Team Then or Team Now.
Now let's get to the part you're all here for. Let's get this race started. Here we are at the Guillotine Gate. In the front line we have Tanner Zhang in the 2020 GTRR in lane 1, and Roberto Paul in the Turbo R30 is in lane 2.
Then, in the back row we have Sherry's hatchback in lane 3, and Gerard's beautiful green classic GTX in lane 4. And during that long intro, the safety officials had plenty of time to clear the track. So these elimination races are a go!
3, 2, 1, go! They're even!
Gerard flips!
It's a battle in the corner!
Gerard is out!
What a pass!
The clunkers go over!
R30 spins into the camera!
Everyone else falls short! Wow! What an awesome way to kick off this event, Barry. As soon as the guillotine gate goes up, all 4 of those cars fly off the line.
Then you can see Tanner immediately cuts in with the blue GTRR, and Miss Ibarra right behind him follows suit and cuts in as well.
And what's great is you can see how tight of a formation they kept coming down Nevada. They look like a squadron of Blue Angel fighter jets.
but they had a hard introduction to the Scrapyard's bottleneck.
No one more so than Gerard in the green GTX. He immediately goes over.
Then we can see how hard they are battling for position coming into Carmine Corner. They even give a few trucks from the safety crew an introductory love tap.
And poor Gerard, with no hope of getting that GTX back over on its wheels, comes to a screeching halt dead center of that turn.
Meanwhile, race leader Tanner Zhang now finds himself on his roof, and Roberto seizes the moment and makes a fast pass.
But somehow, Tanner, while on his roof, manages to block and send Roberto spinning.
Plus, while trying to avoid all the wreckage, Sherry in the yellow HT hits the handbrake and ends up going into our big rig and then ricocheting into the clunkers, sending them over the edge and herself tumbling down the hill.
Then Roberto taps the inside wall coming down the boulevard, and that sends him spinning even more wildly out of control and into our finish line camera as he crosses the line.
And we can just catch a peek at how the blue GTRR and yellow HT both come to a screeching halt on their roofs.
Well, after our first race, only Roberto Paul scores 5 points for a first place spin across the line. And since everyone else finished this heat sunny side up, they get a big fat goose egg 0.
It's Heat 2 and we're back at the gate. We have points leader Roberto Paul in the pole position. And to his right, it's the green GTX in lane 2.
In the back, this time we have Mr. Zhang's blue GTRR in lane 3. And Sherry's hatchback moves over 1 spot to lane 4.
3, 2, 1, go!
Sherry falls behind.
The hatchback struggles through the bottleneck.
Colossal crash in Carmine Corner.
Zhang works hard to get around.
It's gonna be close.
Again, into the camera.
I can just barely make out that the green GTX made it across. I'm glad we do these replays, Barry, because so much went on there that I need to see it again in slow motion.
Right, Al. So let's get to it. It seems right as the gate goes up, Miss Ibarra pinned the yellow hatchback a little too hard because she starts fishtailing.
And then Tanner Zhang in that blue GTRR immediately cashes in on that opportunity and cuts in front.
Miss Ibarra tries to go wide but miscalculates and hits the entry of the bottleneck instead.
Yeah, that's what makes the bottleneck so tricky. It looks like it's the same width as Nevada, but it's actually much narrower.
And that's exactly the reason Sherry Ibarra finds herself short on space to get that car back around.
Meanwhile, Roberto Paul and his 1982 Turbo R30 slam into the safety vehicles. And they all go crashing into the yellow jacket.
Actually, I think the safety crew were setting up some kind of preventatory blockade to keep Wild Bob from taking off. Because we all know, if they had scratched that whirlybird, Wild Bob would make sure those drivers were eliminated permanently.
Well, whatever it was, Roberto probably thought he could breathe a sigh of relief, but then wham! He ends up getting rear-ended by Sherry, who was trailing far behind. Just when he thought he was out of the woods, he was into the fire.
It's out of the frying pan and into the fire.
What did I say?
Never mind. You have that saying, all types of upside down. But speaking of upside down, Gerard Avery is once again upside down in Clunker Canyon. Yet he somehow can still put on a beautiful display of blocking, making it nearly impossible for Tanner Zhang to get around in that monstrously powerful GTRR.
But right as he gets to the exit of Clunker Canyon, he does manage to pass. And somehow in the boulevard, Gerard is actually keeping up while on his roof.
And that's when Tanner opens up the GTRR's full potential and goes screaming across the line. And once again, unfortunately, into our camera.
But I don't think this one is totally destroyed because we could catch just a glimpse of Jared roof sliding across the line before we lose transmission. Sherry is having a hard time getting any points on the board. And our points leader also ended up with a 0, but that's a good trade-off for not scratching that helicopter. However, Jared was able to trade in some green roof paint for 3 points. And finally, Mr. Zhang and the GTRR powerhouse their way to 5 points and has tied up the lead. here we are back at the guillotine for Heat 3. Looks like the racers opted to keep the same positions as the last heat.
Let's see if it brings them better luck the second time around.
3, 2, 1, go!
They're tight!
There's trouble!
The hatchback is out!
It's carnage in the canyon!
They all fall short! This one is all over!
Well, Barry, it looks like second time was not the charm.
Apparently not, Al. Let's see where it all went wrong. Coming down Nevada, Miss Ibarra and her yellow hatchback do a beautiful pit maneuver, sending Mr. Zhang in that blue GTRR spinning into the bottleneck.
And once they get in the bottleneck, that green GTX is on its side yet again. But Mr. Avery does a spectacular job keeping it from flipping over.
And coming down into Carmine Corner, that Turbo R30 joins the GTX by flipping over as well. And it appears Miss Ibarra hit the inside curb a little harder than she expected because she was forced to pull over and cut her engine.
Yeah, and speaking of engine, she hit both of our fire engines as she pulled over. I don't think the safety crew is going to be too happy about that.
Someone else who must have not been happy was Mr. Tanner Zhang in the blue GTRR, because even though he was in reverse, he could not steer around the green GTX.
And it's like even a few of the clunkers wanted to get in on the roof slide racing action.
And then while coming down the boulevard, seeing that Tanner is trying to pass Mr. Gerard Avery, sends his green GTX rolling, preventing that blue GTRR from overtaking. Mr. Avery may not have crossed the line, but he put on a very impressive display of blocking while roof side down.
And while that was an impressive display of driving by Mr. Avery, it was a very unimpressive display of scoring. It's 4 zeros across the board, keeping everyone in the same exact position point-wise.
It's Heat 4, and here we are at the guillotine gate once again.
At this point in the race, the time for playing around is over. These racers better start making some moves if they're hoping to stay in this competition. Maybe with this new lineup, we'll get some results. Up front and in the pole position for the first time is Miss Sherry Ibarra in that yellow hatchback. And to her right in lane 2 is the horsepower monster, the blue GTRR.
And behind them in lane 3, it's Roberto Paul in the Turbo R30. And finally in lane 4, it's Gerard Avery in the green GTX.
3, 2, 1, go!
And they're off!
Whoa, big flip!
It's another wreck in the corner!
Tanner Zhang in the lead.
Into the camera!
Wow! Sherry made it across! Well, that spiced things up, Barry. We got a nice, strong, clean start coming out of the guillotine.
And they keep it clean coming down Nevada.
But, like most instances, things get nuts once they go into the bottleneck. Roberto Paul in the Turbo R30 sends Sherry's yellow HT into the wall, and she goes over hard.
But that move completely backfires on Mr. Paul because now he's stuck behind her and exits the bottleneck all wrong.
It causes Roberto to go right into the silver EMT van parked inside Carmine Corner. And to make matters worse, Mr. Jared Avery, who has that green GTX on its hood once again, slams right into him.
Meanwhile, while in reverse, Tanner Zhang uses some of those rusty clunkers to help straighten himself out.
And yet, Ms. Sherry Ibarra is able to straighten out all by herself, while on her roof.
Tanner fights hard to get the GTRR facing forward, but it does not matter because he still manages to be the first across the line.
And Ms. Sherry Ibarra, who had been on her roof since the bottleneck, manages to take second place. That is pretty remarkable. In that round, Ms. Ibarra gets on the board for the first time and is in a tie for third place. And with only the top 2 racers advancing, Tanner Zhang has mathematically already locked up his spot in the tournament.
here we are. It's the final heat. Up front we have Gerard Avery in that classic GTX in lane 1. And Roberto Paul in the 1982 Turbo R30 is comfortably sitting in lane 2.
And for the last time in the back row, it's the blue GTRR in lane 3. And the only hatchback in this race is back in lane 4. With his spot locked in, Tanner doesn't even have to do anything in this heat. He could pretty much just coast down the track, or even just head back to his trailer.
Not true, Al. He might not need to win, but he could have a decision in who loses. He could use this heat to take out someone he doesn't want to face in the tournament.
Ooh, great point, Barry. So I guess everyone still has something riding on this heat. Let's get it started.
3, 2, 1, go!
Here they come.
Ibarra is out!
R30 huge lead.
He crosses the line!
So does Tanner.
Avery spins to a halt!
Let's break it all down, Barry. Again, a nice, strong, clean start coming out of the guillotine. But heading down Nevada, knowing it's all on the line, Miss Ibarra goes for a risky pit maneuver and tries to take out the point leader.
And that sends the blue GTRR spinning, which in turn causes him to hit the green GTX and once again put poor Gerard Avery on his roof.
Meanwhile, Roberto Paul uses all that commotion to start opening up his lead in Carmine Corner.
And once again, the yellow hatchback shuts off its engines as it goes into our engines.
Then Roberto Paul's lead becomes untouchable because he's exiting Clunker Canyon before anyone else has even entered it.
But that fact isn't going to get in Tanner Zhang's way because he finally manages to get around Jared's GTX and goes full throttle in that blue GTRR.
Then Roberto's Turbo R30 has gained so much velocity he needs our finish line cam to help slow himself down.
Tanner seems to follow along and further damage our equipment.
And while he was unable to cross the line, Jared decides he's still gonna treat the fans to some inverted donuts. What a showman.
And Roberto scores 5 big points with the huge lead he had at the end. And speaking of leads, Tanner's second place finish just adds to his overall points lead. Looking at the final tally, it's Tanner's blue GTRR in first, and Roberto's 1982 Turbo R30 in second.
Tanner Zhang locked up his entry into the tournament early on, and he's tonight's overall winner. And Roberto Paul quietly snuck his way into second place by winning the first and last heats. Also, while she put on a valiant effort, Sherry Ibarra's toughest opponent tonight seemed to be getting around Carmine Corner. Finally, Jared was tied last in points, but he is definitely first in points for spectacle. He put on quite a show. Honestly, I have no idea how he keeps such a classic car in showroom condition when he spends more time on his roof than on his wheels.
Please join us for our next elimination race when 4 Volkswagen Beetles face off for their chance at the tournament.
Yeah, and please subscribe to our channel so we won't have to bug you. Get it? Bug? Because the next race is with Volkswagen Bugs?
Anyway, this is your host, Barnabas Tone. And on behalf of Al and myself, we'd like to ask you to please like, comment on, and share the video you just saw. Thank you for watching, and good night.
It's the day versus now